Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanathimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarinim. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So thank you for being with us today. So we will be reading chapter 10 of 6th Canto, entitled The Battle Between the Demigods and Vritrasura. So Sundar Chaitanya is here and is going to help me today in summarizing this chapter.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me? Okay. So just before we begin, I want to just bring a verse from last time, which is also focused on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it just elaborates again the importance of the Srimad Bhagavatam for the devotees. You may remember this, and I'm just going to pull it up. Can you give me the screen sharing rights?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the verse. This is written by Sanatan Goswami, and it's a very, very sweet verse. Madeka bandho mat sangin madguru man mahadhana man nishtaraka mad bhagya mad anandha namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, my only friend, my companion, my teacher, my great wealth, my deliverer, my good fortune, my bliss, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. And so remembering that Srila Prabhupada, when he came, he only brought the Srimad Bhagavatam with him and transformed the whole world. We also realize that although we look for so many solutions here and there, the only solution we really need is this beautiful text of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So with that, we can begin today's session. This is a very small chapter in comparison to the previous chapters. The 10th chapter is all about the battle between the demigods and the demons. In this case, the demigods led by Indra and the demons led by Vritrasura. So just to provide some context, broad context, zoom out completely of this chapter. What happened at some point is that Indra was enjoying in heavenly planets, and he failed to respect his spiritual master, Brihaspati. Failing to respect his spiritual master, he had to then go through the consequences of this, and the demons became powerful because they actually did respect their spiritual master, and they were able to take over. Then, in order to deal with this, under the guidance of the Lord, of Lord Brahma, Indra goes and takes shelter of Vishwarupa. Now, Vishwarupa is a sage, and he conducts various austerities and sacrifices, and he also teaches Indra the Narayan Kavacha, this prayer of protection, which we discussed last session, or the previous session prior. And in that, he provides this mantra of protection. However, if you remember, Vishvarupa had 3 heads. And with one of those heads, he had some favorability to the demons through his maternal relation. And so what he was doing was, as well as helping the demigods, he was secretly helping the demons as well, offering some portion of the yajna to the demons. Indra became very angry, and he beheaded Vishvarupa, which counts as 3 beheadings actually, because of the 3 heads. Then, again, he has to incur sinful reactions. Long story short, he distributes those sinful reactions. And now, under the guidance of the Supreme Lord, he is instructed to ask Dadichi Muni for his bones to formulate a weapon.
Just before that, after beheading Vishvarupa's father,
Tvashta, yes.
Tvashta became angry, and he wanted to avenge the death of his son Vishvarupa. So in order to avenge the death, he wanted to beget a son through sacrifice. So he performed a sacrifice, and in that sacrifice, instead of uttering the word Indra Shatru, so he elongated it. He put a little long at the end, Indra Shatru, something like that. So he elongated. So as a result of that, he begot a son who would be killed by Indra rather than killing Indra. Okay. So, and this personality, Vrutrasura, came out of this, fire sacrifice, a gigantic personality who appeared as if he was licking the stars with his tongue. So he charged towards the demigods. And when demigods threw weapons, he just simply swallowed. Nothing happened. This is the best way to scare enemy. Just swallow. They were aiming at the body. He just swallowed all the weapons. So in this situation, not knowing what to do, they approached Lord Vishnu and offered some prayers. And Lord Vishnu, advised them to approach Dadichi Muni, and Dadichi Muni, and ask for his body, so that with his bones, Vajrayuda, means a thunderbolt, a weapon, can be made, which can be used against the Rashtra. And the Dadichi, how he became so strong, his body became so strong, and his bones became so strong, so powerful. He has been uttering this mantra. Which mantra? Narayan Kavacha. Narayan Kavacha, he's been uttering that mantra. So as a result of that, every part of his body became so strong and so powerful. Yeah. Okay.
So yes, as you explained, so Tvashta misutters Vritrasura, this gigantic demon, is formed, and in order to try and deal with this situation, because he's clearly far stronger than the demigods imagined, then they take shelter of, or they're going to approach Dadichi under the guidance of the Lord. And this point is very important, that Dadichi Muni is so strong because of his spiritual strength. So the real strength, in the end of the day, you might think the demigods, they are, materially some of the most strong people. They literally have the managerial power of this material world. In terms of material strength, no one can defeat those devatas. But actually, the real strength that comes is from spiritual strength. and we will discuss that later on. But maybe some of you can remember a similar situation where Kshatriya versus Brahmana came about, and in the end, although the Brahmana may not be as physically strong, they were able to succeed. Can anyone think? Cast your minds to Ramayana. This comes up in one of the classes I heard. Srila Prabhupada, where he talks about this. Yes, Manjurada Mataji.
Prabhu, is it to do with Vishwamitra and Vashisht?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, so similar situation. Vishwamitra that time was a king, Vashishta was a Brahmana, and by his Brahminical strength, he was just absorbing Brahmastras. So, in the end of the day, it's the spiritual strength that matters. Okay, so if we can have a volunteer to read the first 12 verses. Thank you very much, Purna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Text 1. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, after instructing Indra in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, then and there disappeared from the presence of the onlooking demigods. Text 2. O King Parikshit, following the Lord's instructions, the demigods approached Dadiji, the son of Atharva. He was very liberal, and when they begged him to give them his body, he at once partially agreed. However, just to hear religious instructions from them, he smiled and jokingly spoke as follows. Text 3. O elevated demigods, at the time of death, severe unbearable pain takes away the consciousness of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Don't you know about this pain? Text 4. In this material world, every living entity is very much addicted to his material body. Struggling to keep his body forever, everyone tries to protect it by all means, even at the sacrifice of all his possessions. Therefore, who would be prepared to deliver his body to anyone, even if it were demanded by Lord Vishnu? Text 5. The demigods replied, O exalted Brahmana, pious persons like you, whose activities are praiseworthy, are very kind and affectionate to people in general. What can't such pious souls give for the benefit of others? They can give everything, including the bodies. Text 6. Those who are too self-interested beg something from others, not knowing of others' pain. But if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. Similarly, he who is able to give charity does not know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity. Could you scroll up the screen, please, Prabhu?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Mataji.
Yeah. Text 7. The great sage Tadichi said, just to hear from you about religious principles, I refuse to offer my body at your request. Now, although my body is extremely dear to me, I must give it up for your better purposes, since I know that it will leave me today or tomorrow. Text 8. O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher causes of religious principles or eternal glory is certainly pitied even by the immovable beings. Text 9. If one is unhappy to see the distress of other living beings and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are appreciated as imperishable by exalted persons who are considered pious and benevolent. Text 10. This body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives, must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. Could you please scroll up? Yep, thank you. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Dadichi Muni, the son of Atharva, thus resolved to give his body to the service of the demigods. He placed himself, the spirit soul, at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way gave up his gross material body made of 5 elements. Text 12. Dadichi Muni controlled his senses, life force, mind, and intelligence, and became absorbed in trance. Thus, he cut all his material bonds. He could not perceive how his material body became separated from his self.
Thank you very
Hare
much,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So the first 12 verses of this chapter is elaborating on that discussion that happened when the demigods went and spoke to Dadichi Muni. So they go and they ask him in initial verses, and he partially agrees. He doesn't completely agree. And the reason for that is because he's trying to see whether they understand proper religious principles. And actually, these verses are so beautiful. Srila Prabhupada writes beautiful purports to these verses because they teach us very important lessons about charity, about compassion, and about the welfare of others and what it means to actually provide welfare. So we'll look through them in a little bit more depth. In text 6, it's understood now that Dadichi Muni says, it's too difficult for me to give up my body. And the demigods are saying, it's not actually so difficult, because we know that great personalities like yourself, they are very happy to give up things for the benefit of others. So sacrifice, people always think sacrifice means you pour some ghee in the fire and you say svaha and then you go back home and watch TV. This is not sacrifice. Sacrifice means to give up something that is desirable for oneself because it can be utilized in the benefit of others. That's really considered sacrifice. And then what exactly is the benefit of others? It's not just, okay, I want to drink alcohol, but someone else wants to drink alcohol more than me. Let me give alcohol. This is not sacrifice. The benefit of others means it should actually make them closer to God. That's real benefit. Any activity that we do that takes someone else away from God, that is not benefit. That is actually harming others. So if you go to a homeless man and the homeless man says, please give me drugs, and you say, I will happily give you drugs. This is not called sacrifice. This is not called charity. It's not proper charity. It's charity in the mode of ignorance, Krishna explains in the Gita. And so the demigods, they're asking, look, you're a pious soul, you're a great personality, you should be happy to give up anything for the benefit of others. And here they explain in text 6 the basic principle of charity, which is both the beggar and the receiver should not be finding it too difficult in charity. In other words, if the beggar is going and asking the beggar is asking the giver, please give up something, but it's actually really difficult for the giver, then the beggar should not ask, because he should understand that it's too difficult to give up. And similarly, if the giver knows that the beggar is not willing to receive, then the giver also should not give. This Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport, right? So sometimes it's the case that parents have to give the child a very harsh instruction, but they understand that if they give the child the instruction at that moment in time, the child is not willing to listen. So what do they have to do? They have to wait until the child is in a mood that he's actually willing to listen, and then they will give the instruction. In that same way, charity should be given considering the difficulty and the circumstances of both the person that is begging and the person who is giving. So this is very, very important. So this, you might think, yeah, this is basic logic, like we don't need the Srimad Bhagavatam to understand this. But then the next verses is when this becomes very beautiful. So I request all devotees, if you get free time as well, please read through the translation and purport of 8, 9, 10, and 11. We'll discuss them now, but please read through them in your free time as well. It's very, very beautiful. Okay, so in the 8th text, over here, this is kind of like the key verse of this chapter in terms of the principle that can be taken. Yo dhruvenatmana nata na dharmam na yasha puman iheta bhuta dhayaya sa shochaya stavarairapi. O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity in its suffering and does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher cause of religious principles or eternal glory, is certainly pitied even by the immovable beings. Okay? So in other words, to make it simple English, one who does not sacrifice bodily comforts for higher purposes is considered pitiable. Now, the reason for this is because this bodily comfort that we so highly value, we only do so because we don't see the big picture. But when one sees the big picture of, this simple body is actually not going to be mine, it's not going to be with me for long, it's not going to be there present at the times of, 100, 200, 300 years, it won't be present. So therefore I should use it in that thing which is eternal. In other words, by the laws of logic, it's explained also in Niti Shastra, one who sacrifices the imperishable for the perishable loses the imperishable and loses the perishable. You might say, sorry, can you make that simpler? One who sacrifices that which is eternal for that which is not eternal loses that which is eternal because they sacrificed it. They never put the time and energy into getting that which is eternal. And they lose that which is not eternal. How? Because by definition, that which is not eternal will leave you. So this is the whole point. One who sacrifices the imperishable for the perishable verily loses the imperishable and the perishable. In terms of application of this principle of logic, one who sacrifices spiritual life for material enjoyment loses spiritual life because they now can no longer gain spiritual life, and they lose material enjoyment because by definition of this nature of the human body is that if we do not utilize it properly, we have to then go and suffer throughout many other species before getting the chance to come back to human stage again. And so reverse that logic. If one sacrifices the perishable for the imperishable, they actually don't lose anything because they get the greatest gain. In this example, in this regard, Srila Prabhupada beautifully explains in this purport these points. We'll just read this beautiful verse. Tyaktva sudhushtyaja surepshitaraja lakshmin dharmishta arya vachasa yadagad aranyam mayam mrigam dayitayepshitam anvadhavad vande mahapurushate charanaravindham Vande Mahapurushate Charanaravindham. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He left his household alive, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the denizens of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver the fallen souls, who are put into illusion by the material energy. So this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This verse is describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.34. So Mahaprabhu, he leaves household life and he goes and he preaches. He takes sannyas, and Srila Prabhupada writes somewhere, to accept sannyas means to commit civil suicide. So he sacrifices those pleasures for the sake of elevating others, for the benefit of others. Similarly, we have the examples of the Goswamis. Tyaktva turnamashesha mandhalapati shrenim sada tucchavat bhutva dhina ganesha kau karunaya kaupina kanta shrito. They gave up their wonderful positions. Some of them lived as ministers, zamindars, and great scholars. And what did? They joined Mahaprabhu's movement. And instead of, enjoying so much money and comfort, they live a simple life as saintly persons, and they're wearing kolpina, loincloth, and in this way they are doing the great work for others. Bhutva dhina ganeshako, delivering the fallen souls, karunaya, out of their mercy. So in other words, Mahaprabhu renounces material pleasure for the sake of helping others. The Goswamis in his example also do the same. And we have in our modern day, in our present day, we have the example of Srila Prabhupada, who did the exact same thing. He could have very simply had a very happy, peaceful life in Vrindavan, 69. Most people, they think like life is over by 69. Retirement plans and thinking how you can use your pension. But Srila Prabhupada, he was just getting started. So this is the mood of the devotee. It's very important. And then Srila Prabhupada, in this purport, he has a plea. He makes a plea to everyone. Similarly, everyone else with a materially comfortable condition in this world, should join the Krishna conscious movement to elevate fallen souls. One should join the Krishna conscious movement following the examples of great personalities as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, and before them, the great sage Dadichi. Instead of wasting one's life for temporary bodily comforts, one should always be prepared to give up one's life for better causes. After all, the body would be destroyed. Therefore, one should sacrifice it for the glory of distributing religious principles throughout the world. So this is the greatest sacrifice. So please look at this verse. Then, elaborating on this matter, if one is unhappy to see the distress of other living entities and happy to see their happiness, his religious principles are considered proper. Now this is really, really important. Okay? If we are measuring our own spiritual progress and we get a kick out of seeing other people upset, or we get unhappy when other people are succeeding, our religious principles are misplaced. This is so important for spiritual life. The Vaishnava is considered as one who is paradukka dukki. A Vaishnava is paradukka dukki. Seeing the dukkha, the misery of others, he should feel dukkha himself. He should feel unhappy. So this is a really, really important point, right? We might have so many religious principles, we might think that we're making so much progress, but if we become heartless and we don't have empathy by our practice of religion, our religious principles are considered improper. Now this is very, very important. Do you want to add anything to that? This point here?
No, that's fine. I think devotees, the example of Lord Shiva, they
I was thinking same, yeah.
Yeah, they risk their own life to see the happiness of other people in general. So that is a devotee. So Lord Shiva drinks poison to make them happy.
Yeah. So this is a devotee is one who takes on the misery to help others.
Yeah.
Just to elaborate on this purport, you might think, of other humans? No, other living entities. And then Prabhupada uses this purport as a chance to just go in on anyone that eats meat. He really is very heavy. One cannot continue to be killing animals and at the same time be a religious man. Very, very strong purport. If anyone considers themselves religious...
We see, I don't want to annoy anyone, but we see many people, they are leaders of the temples.
Yes, yeah.
Not in ISKCON, but outside. In some temples, we see they are leaders, but they eat. They eat meat.
So this is a completely nonsensical principle, meat eating. See, Lord Buddha's mission is to stop unnecessary animal killing. He's telling, if you want to derive this from first principles, this principle here is very simple, right? I should be unhappy when others are unhappy, and I should be happy when others are happy. Why? Because I know if I was in that situation, I would also be unhappy. And I know if I was in that situation, I would also be happy. So therefore, by that principle of if I was suffering, I want others to also empathize with me, at least by that logic itself, I should also feel the happiness and distress of others. That's the first part. This is what Srila Prabhupada says here. Then we get the golden rule, the so-called golden rule in this world, which is treat people how you want to be treated. Treat others how you want to be treated. That's the next step. But then the devotee goes even beyond that. And the devotee doesn't just treat others how they want to be treated, but the devotee treats others, taking the best welfare of others at any cost that it will take the devotee. So they treat others better than how they would be treated themselves. Okay, and then Srila Prabhupada really goes in on people that say, he talks here, Jesus Christ said, do not kill, but hypocrites nevertheless maintain thousands of slaughterhouses while posing as Christians. Such hypocrisy is condemned in this verse. Then he goes on to use many verses. Sarva Yonishu Kaunteya. Krishna says, I am the father of all living entities. Aham bija pradapita, for Sarva Yonishu, for all forms of life. He says that anyone who sees spiritual life, they should see the soul is the same, regardless of the body. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva svapake cha pandita samadarshana. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. The spiritual person sees the spirit soul, not the body. So when you're taking care of the welfare of others, you can't say, I care for the welfare of my fellow beings, and then also see that animals are killed systematically. This is systematic murder, and it's legal, and it's propagized. It's considered proper, but this is terrible. And then finally he explains, Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu. This line here is, they see the person who is properly situated in spiritual life sees all other living entities equally. In fact, meat eating is probably the worst case of cognitive dissonance. It's the worst case of hypocrisy for a spiritualist. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada then concludes again that the Vaishnava should come back to this principle of feeling the emotions of others, feeling for the happiness and pleasure of others, including animals. And therefore, if you actually feel for the happiness of others, you should preach. Now, finally, coming here, the body, again, this is the same thing. The body is going to perish at any moment. We should utilize its things for the benefit of others. Now, it's important to analyze this final component, which is, what is the benefit of others? Okay, we just discussed it, but just remind yourself, what is the benefit of others? Certain philosophical understandings, such as utilitarianism, they will say that when other people are happy, that is their benefit. That is it. It doesn't matter. If other people are happy, that is considered beneficial. Okay, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur really criticizes this argument. He says, just because the people are happy does not mean that it's good for them. Something being good for someone and something making someone else happy in terms of sense gratification are two distinct concepts completely. He says a child may become happy by eating so many sweets, but the parent knows that that's going to cause so much pain when you get cavities in your teeth. So the parent, considering the welfare of the child, should restrict the child from having sweets. So what is he doing? He's acting for the benefit of the child, but he's not acting for the immediate happiness of the child. This is also one of the arguments that Schumpeter gives. Schumpeter Srila Prabhupada quotes. Schumpeter, a political economist, against democracy. If democracy says, if the people say that this is good, doesn't make that thing good. Right? Let's say the people say that they vote for a certain policy and they say this policy will make me happy. I don't know, a certain tax cut or something like that. That necessarily isn't good. Just because we like it doesn't mean it's good. And this is such an important point. When we are doing charity work, we cannot just think, this person will be happy if I give them drugs and alcohol, therefore I'll give them that. My friends will be happy if I let them party, therefore I let them. No. If you really care for the welfare of others, you should explain to them the real philosophy. The reason for their distress is that they are disconnected from Krishna. And so the real benefit for others is by connecting them to Krishna. In the same way that the real benefit for ourselves is by connecting ourselves to Krishna. And so this is explained here. One who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India should make his life successful and work for the benefit of other people. So Mahaprabhu says, Janma sartaka kari, perfect our own existence, kara para upakar, and also try and perfect the existence of others. This is done by preaching. So it's, this is it. Because philanthropists do not know how to help others, their propensity is ineffectual. They do not know the ultimate goal of life, which is to please the Supreme Lord. If all philanthropic and humanitarian activities are directed towards achieving the ultimate goal of life, pleasing Krishna, they will be perfect. And then the most bold statement in this purport, humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing. Humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing. So Krishna must be brought to the center of all our activities, otherwise no activity has value. And the next purport is that now, not this one, sorry. The Dichi Muni absorbs himself in the spiritual Lord and completely absorbs himself in service of the spiritual Lord, and therefore absorbs himself into the spiritual world in the same way that all great personalities do. Srila Prabhupada just emphasizes this one principle. At the end of the life, whatever we think of, we achieve that. And so at the end of our life, we want to think of Krishna. We want to leave our body thinking of Krishna. And if we do in this way, then we'll go back home, back to Godhead. And Bhakti Yoga is that process by which you can attain the highest goal, because you don't just go to Brahman and come back here. You don't just go to the heavenly planets like Karmis. You can actually go back to your constitutional position. So this is very, very important. Absorbed in trance does not mean that simply emerging into the oneness of Brahman, but it rather means that you can actually go and engage in devotion to Krishna. This point will come out again at the end of this chapter, so we won't focus on it too much now. Okay, so just to emphasize, this is the most practical section of this chapter. You should have compassion and empathy for others. Empathy for others is the basic principle of spiritual progress. Real empathy for others means that you will try and take on suffering for their well-being. This is the quality of devotee. Personalities like Lord Shiva, or you see even now like Lord Jesus Christ, they take on difficulty for the welfare of others. This welfare of others point, the others includes animals and other living entities. You can't say that I think of the welfare of others and then kill animals and devour them. So the others means all living entities. And considering what is real benefit, the real benefit is the benefit of Krishna consciousness. So these are really beautiful philosophical arguments that Srila Prabhupada provides here. And this is very important for us in our life, because it's telling us, if you don't understand any of this philosophy, simply put, all we have to do is we have to utilize this life for the highest purpose of preaching in Krishna consciousness. Okay, this is the conclusion of this section. Now the rest of the chapter is actually very simple and smooth, so we won't have to discuss too much. But please remember these points. In particular, these 3 verses, please do read them afterwards. Do you want to add anything, Nana? Okay, let's go. So, this is verse 1 to 12, the conversation between the Dadichi and the demigods. Now we have verses 13 to 29. We'll divide that 13 to 20 and 20 to 29. We'll divide it in that way. These verses are explaining now the attack of the demigods attacking the demons. So 13 to 20, can we have one volunteer?
Padma Mataji, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Text 13 to 14. Thereafter, King Indra was firmly took up the thunderbolt manufactured by Vishwakarma from the bones of Dadichi. Charged with the exalted power of Dadichi Muni and enlightened by the power of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Indra rode on the back of his carrier, Airavata, surrounded by all demigods, while all the great sages offered him praise. Thus, he shone very beautifully, pleasing the 3 words as he rode off to kill Vritrasura. Text 15. My dear King Parikshit, as Rudra, being very angry at Antaka, Yamaraja, had formally run towards Antaka to kill him, Indra angrily and with great force attacked Vritrasura, who has surrendered by the leaders of the demonic armies. Text 16. Thereafter, at the end of the Satyuga and the beginning of Treta Yuga, a fierce battle took place between the demigods and the demons on the bank of the Narmada. Text 17 to 18. O king, when all the Asuras came into the battlefield, headed by Vritrasura, they saw King Indra carrying the thunderbolt and surrounded by Rudras, Vasus, Adityas, Ashwini Kumaras, Pitas, Vahnis, Maruts, Rishabs, Sadyas, and Vishwadevas. Surrounded by his company, Indra shone so brightly that his effulgence was intolerable to the demons.
Yeah,
Text
this
9. Thank you, Prabhuji.
No, you can do the next verse as well, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Text 19 to 22. Many hundreds and thousands of demons, demigods, yakshas, rakshasas, man-eaters, and others, headed by Sumali and Mali, resisted the armies of King Indra, which even death personified cannot easily overcome. Among the demons were Namuchi, Sambara, Anarva, Vimurda, Rishabha, Asura, Haigriva, Sankushira, Viprachiti, Ayomukha, Puloma, Vrisaparva, Praheti, Heti, and Utkala. Roaring tumultuously and fearlessly like lions, these invincible demons, all dressed in golden ornaments, gave pain to the demigods with weapons like clubs, bludgeons, arrows, barbed darts, mallets, and lances.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Do we have a volunteer to read from 23 to 29?
Lakshman Prabhu, you raised your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Text 23. Armed with lances, tridents, axes, swords, and other weapons like CH10 and Busundis, the demons attacked from different directions and scattered all the chiefs of the demigod armies. Text 24. As the stars in the sky cannot be seen when covered by dense clouds, the demigods, being completely covered by networks of arrows falling upon them one after another, could not be seen. Text 25. The showers of various weapons and arrows released to kill soldiers of the demigods did not reach them because the demigods, acting quickly, cut the weapons into thousands of pieces in the sky. Text 26. As their weapons and mantras decreased, the demons began showering mountain peaks, trees, and stones upon the demigod soldiers. But the demigods were so powerful and expert that they nullified all these weapons by breaking them into pieces in the sky as before. Text 27. When soldiers of demons, commanded by Vratasura, saw that the soldiers of King Indra were quite well, having not been injured at all by their volleys of weapons, not even by the trees, stones, and mountain peaks, the demons very much afraid. Text 28. When insignificant persons use rough words to cast false, angry accusations against saintly persons, their fruitless words do not disturb the great personalities. Similarly, all the efforts of the demons against the demigods who are favorably situated under the protection of Krishna were futile. Text 29. The asuras, who are never devotees of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, lost their pride in fighting when they found all their endeavors futile, leaving aside their leader even in the very beginning of the fight. They decided to flee because all their prowess had been taken away by the enemy. Text 30. Seeing his army broken and all the asuras, even those known as great heroes, fleeing the battlefield out of intense fear, Vritasura, who was truly a great-minded hero, smiled and spoke following words.
Thank you, Prabhu. So these verses from 13 to 29 elaborate on this fight. So the beginning is setting the scene. How Indra, using now the bones of Dadichi Muni, formulated by these bones were manufactured into a thunderbolt by Vishvakarma, who's the architect for the Devatas. And so now he has this thunderbolt weapon from Dadichi. He now charges into battle with the power of Dadichi Muni. Okay? And he goes and he's very confident. And then there's a description of all the demigods and the demons that come with him. Then they threw all kinds of weapons. It looked like you couldn't even see them, the demigods, because there were so many weapons that were thrown at them. But they, acting quickly, they cut the weapons before they were hit. And then they started throwing mountain peaks, but the demigods also were not affected by that. And then when they saw that nothing was having an effect, the demons started running away, and they were leaving Vritrasura, their leader. They were running away, they were deserting the battlefield. And so then at the end of this section, we are given the principle, these two principles. In verse 28, it's stated, when insignificant persons use rough words to cast false, angry accusations against saintly persons, their fruitless words do not disturb the great personalities. So, often it is the case that when demons are angry, when they become angered, for some reason or another, they cast accusations against saintly people. This is the case. You might think historically the first thing that came to mind when I read this was Shiva and Daksha. Shiva and Daksha. In the Daksha Yajna pastime, what happens is that Daksha becomes offended by Lord Shiva because of his own false ego. And then he starts saying all kinds of terrible accusations against Lord Shiva. He's like, oh, you don't know any principles of religion. You don't know anything about what is moral, what is immoral. You think you're great, whereas you don't know anything. So in this way, he starts casting loads of accusations. You know, you're actually a very low person because you hang out with the Bhut Pishacha in, you know, crematoriums, you smear ashes on your body, you're very unclean. I actually don't have any reason to give you my daughter in marriage, but only because Lord Brahma told me I did. So in this way, he starts casting accusations. But how did Lord Shiva react? Did he start canto cursing? He didn't do anything. He kept quietly, he stayed peaceful, and he just simply left that place. So when insignificant persons use rough words to cast false, angry accusations against saintly persons, the fruitless words do not disturb the great personalities. Similarly, the efforts of demons against demigods, who are situated in the protection of Krishna, are futile. The demigods, if you look at the demigods, they have one factor, they have one thing that keeps them going under all circumstances. This is the point. Krishnanu kuleshu, those who are always protected by Krishna. The demigods, if you look at the demigods, they also have material desires. They also want to be protected, etc., etc. But they are exactly like the demons in every respect, except for one difference, which is the demons go against Krishna, and the demigods take shelter of Krishna. Demons want power, demigods want power. Demons want name, fame, so do demigods. But the difference is the demigods take shelter of Krishna, and the demons do not. And therefore, the endeavors of the demoniac persons never have any effect to the demigods. And this is a principle that we all know. The principle simply here, the scientific law that's being told to us, the spiritual scientific law, is our spiritual practice is our real protection. Our sadhana is our real protection. Our surrender to Krishna is our real protection. Remembering the pastime of Jadabharat. He had no physical protection, he had no amazing strategy. He simply had complete faith in the Lord. And so what happened? Mother Kali herself came to protect. Remembering the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj. He had no amazing, complicated analysis or plan. He simply took shelter of Krishna. And he calls out to Narayana, and Lord Narasimhadev appears in the pillar. Recalling the pastimes of the Pandavas, Draupadi, she simply puts her hand up. She puts her hands up and she chants for Krishna. Krishna comes and protects. So the one thing, protection does not mean, Ambarish Maharaj. Ambarish Maharaj, the fiery demons running at him, he simply stands there. He doesn't do anything. He just remembers Krishna in the mind. Krishna sends the Sudarshan Chakra. I mean, you can do analysis in every situation like this, but the point is, protection means Krishnanu kuleshu, surrender to Krishna. Protection means protection from Krishna, because you cannot be protected by anyone else. So your real protection is your surrender to Krishna. This is the important point here. Okay, and then the final verses, 31, 32, and 33. Can we have a volunteer to read these? So Vritrasra is addressing those demons who are fleeing. Vritrasra is now trying to speak to them. Any volunteers? Go on, Arya.
According to his position and the time and circumstances, Vritrasura, the hero among heroes, spoke words that were much to be appreciated by thoughtful men. He called to the heroes of the demons, O Viprajiti, O Namuchi, O Puloma, O Maya, Anarva, and Sambara, please hear me and do not flee. Vritrasura said, all living entities who have taken birth in this material world must die. Surely no one in this world has found any means to be saved from death. Even Providence has not provided a means to escape it. Under the circumstances, death being inevitable, if one can gain promotion to the higher planetary systems and be always celebrated here by dying a suitable death, what man will not accept such a glorious death? There are two ways to meet a glorious death, and both are very rare. One is to die after performing mystic yoga, especially bhakti yoga, by which one can control the mind and living force and die absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Second is to die on the battlefield, leading the army and never showing one's back. These two kinds of death are recommended in the Shastras as glorious.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So here Dhritarashtra is trying to call them back. Oh, come on, warriors. Come on, let's attack. You know, what is his reason for attack? There are two ways to meet a glorious death. One is through yoga, in particular bhakti yoga. So you're absorbed in thought of God. You absorb yourself in the Supreme Lord, in thought of the Supreme Lord, and then you give up your body. Or the second is to die on the battlefield. Okay, so you might think, wait a minute, those two don't seem the same level. They are not. Like, this is considered, of all spiritual ways of leaving, this is very, very amazing. If you can leave your body in spiritual thoughts, this is what the great personalities do. But even if you're not a spiritualist, if you're a materialist, then one of the best ways to leave the battle, especially for the Kshatriyas, is to die on the battlefield. Because materially, even if you do not understand spiritual science and the importance of spiritual life, materially what's so important is that you die doing your duty, at least, your material duty, your varnashrama dharma. So this is paradharma, this is beyond material rules, and this is according to material rules. So the first is spiritual, and the second is material, but in accordance with the rules of dharma. And these two deaths are considered glorious. Now you might think, this sounds quite familiar. This does come, actually, earlier. O demigods, one who has no compassion for humanity and its suffering, does not sacrifice his impermanent body for the higher causes of religious principles, so that's spiritual life, or eternal glory, so that's material. So these are the two reasons, that the two kind of glorious kind of deaths which are there. And so he's basically rounding up his army. He knows, of course, that they don't care, they're demoniac persons, they don't care about this so much. So he's basically saying the glorious way of dying is actually dying on the battlefield. This reminds you of what Krishna says to Arjuna. Hato va prapsyasi svargam jitva va bhokshase mahin tasmaduttishta kaunteya yuddhaya krita nishchaya. So like this, that, if you die, then you will get the heavenly planets. Now what's quite interesting here is that a certain type of devotee actually fits into both of these categories. Does anyone know which kind of devotee fits into both categories of death? When they pass away, they fit into both categories. They die a warrior's death, but they also die the death of a devotee.
Bhishmadev?
Bhishmadev does, and there's a certain type of devotee. Bhishmadev does.
Certain.
It's a certain type of devotee. Which devotee is considered a warrior type of devotee? Does anyone have any ideas? I'll give you a clue.
Khatwanga, he died. Khatwanga?
Yeah, these are all okay. Yeah, these are all amazing personalities. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mataji. You're also right. The thing is, there is a certain
Kshatriya?
Kshatriya, yes, and that's why I'm saying yes for all Kshatriyas. But there's a certain type of devotee in this age, and I'll just give an example. There's one type of devotee who sits down and does bhajana. We call them bhajananandis. They just sit and they do their own spiritual practice. And so they give up their body in their own spiritual practice. And this is amazing. This is beautiful. There's another type of devotee.
Oh, that's Goshtanandis.
Goshtanandis. Would you like to elaborate?
Sorry?
Would you like to elaborate on what is Goshtanandis?
Yes. They go and preach and they elevate other people. They take them out of material entanglement and try to teach them about Krishna consciousness. So they take the risk of life to go and do that, like Srila Prabhupada did.
Exactly. Exactly. So the Goshtanandi, the preacher, is both a Brahmana and a Kshatriya. Prabhupada says this loads of times.
I see.
Right? The preacher is a manager because he has to deal with the people. Manager means Kshatriya. But the preacher is also a Brahmana because he's carrying out spiritual principles. And so the preacher, when the preacher passes away, they leave a warrior's death and the death of a spiritualist because they are in yoga, of course, they're in connection with Krishna. At the same time, they're also leaving fighting Maya. And so they're glorious on both accounts. If you look, Srila Prabhupada, he was literally on the deathbed he's translating Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what it means to be a warrior. He's fighting Maya even in the last minute. Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj was literally preaching a few days before he passed away. His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, that's a warrior's exit right there. Kadamba Kanana Maharaj. So that the devotee who is preaching actually leaves the death in both ways. I heard this
Are
point in
there
a class.
any other kind of devotees along with Bhajanananda, Goshtananda, and no? Just
Jayadvaita Maharaj says there's 3 kinds of devotees. In reality, there's only 2. Philosophically, there's only 2. Goshtanandi and Bhajananandi. Goshtanandi is a Bhajananandi who also shares with others.
I see. Thank you.
The reason Bhajananandi is not recommended for us is because what happens if we just do our own spiritual practice is we think we're really great, and then our own ego from spiritual practice destroys us. Because we will be like chanting like, I don't know, 64 rounds a day. And instead what we do is, wow, look at me, I'm so great, I do this much. These are the people, they don't do anything. And so what happens is we in this age develop a lot of pride if we try and take that method.
Mm.
So that's the reason that preaching is, because preaching keeps you humble. Like you go and tell someone about Krishna and they say, no, I'm not interested. And it just humbles you. You do book distribution on the street and no one wants to come, it keeps you humble. You know, you're dealing with devotees and the problems come, keeps you back down to earth. So preaching is really, really important because it keeps us humble.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Beautiful question. I was just going to tell the joke. There's 3 types of devotees, Goshtanandi and Bhajananandi, but Jayadvaita Maharaj says everyone in ISKCON is Bhojananandi. Bhojana means meal, so they just like to eat.
That's my category.
We're all in that category.
Everyone's category.
That's all of our category. But yes, so this chapter now concludes in this way. We discussed the importance of preaching. This whole chapter is telling us to preach. The best type of charity is preaching. The best welfare work for others is preaching. The best way of considering and being empathetic to others is by listening to their problems, understanding them, and explaining through the Krishna conscious principles how they can overcome them. This is the best method. And so preaching is really what's really given a high focus. And this is what's mentioned in this point here as well. That, you know, Bhakti Yoga, but also there's a special type of Bhakti Yoga when there's a Kshatriya doing Bhakti Yoga, and that's a preacher, because he's going against the forces of the world. And so we also want to live in this way. So preacher doesn't mean you have to tell 500 people to become a devotee. Preacher just means one thing. You try and share with one person, that's not yourself, a little bit about Krishna consciousness. And Mahaprabhu gives loads of mercy, and Srila Prabhupada gives loads of mercy, and then our life is successful. So thank you very much. This is it.
Especially, you don't want to miss the next 2 chapters, especially.
Shall we give a little teaser?
Our next chapter is simply wonderful. What kind of prayers Rudrasura offers to the Lord. What was his mood? It's a transcendental qualities. It's a divine demon. You have to, you don't want to miss it. Beautiful prayers by Rudrasura, and wonderful qualities exhibited.
Transcendental qualities,
yeah, transcendental qualities.
So yes,
okay.
Indra's gonna get himself in another sticky situation again for the third time in this chapter.
Third time. Yes, Padma Mataji.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I'm asking too many questions today. But in terms of preaching, obviously that is the best service that you can do. My question is, at what stage are you ready to preach? Obviously, it can be a double-edged sword. When you think, okay, you know a little bit, but then do you just preach or just tell others what you know, or do you have to wait to a certain point before you start doing that?
Amazing question, Mataji. Yeah. The answer is, preaching also, by the way, does not mean forceful imposition upon someone else. It doesn't mean you tell them, oh, you do like this or God will send you to hell. No. Preaching means a natural inspiring. You really Mataji, you see a really good movie and then you'll tell someone else, wow, I saw a nice movie, you should also watch. You buy a good car, oh, this is a good car, you should also buy. You find a nice stock to invest in, oh, this is a good stock, you should also invest in it. This is all preaching is. I find a nice method to purify my life and help me. Wow, you should also try it. Just think of it that way. Don't think of it as philosophy. I think many times we think of it like this, but we should just think of it as just you inspire other people. And in terms of what stage, the answer is Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha. Shrotavya means you hear, and Kirtitavya means you repeat. That is the qualification. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, the qualification of preaching is that you are alive. that you hear and that you repeat. So we don't have to wait for so much philosophical advancement, because it's an illusion to think that I will first become advanced, then I will preach, because we will never become advanced until we start preaching. And the preaching gives us lots of mercy. Then when I'm telling you, when you're there, and then somehow Krishna will give you an idea of how you answer a question. You know, or like you're explaining to someone, and then they will say, oh, they'll challenge you, and then what will that do? You will go and read the books again. Oh, I don't know how to answer this question. So it makes us a better devotee by preaching.
Amazing.
So that's the answer. The time is now.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I really enjoyed the class and your advice today. Much appreciated. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Just repeating Srila Prabhupada.
Arya Devi.
Hare Krishna. It said earlier that at the time of death, you experience such severe pain that it makes it hard to think of Krishna. Like, how hard is it to think of Krishna? Is there like a definitive measure? Is
A
it
million scorpions biting or something?
Yeah. No, you're right, Arya. This is true, but Krishna also then, because he's a little bit sneaky with the devotees, he also gives a little cheat code in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that even if you can't remember him at the time of death, if you live your life in devotion and you try your best, this is 8.27. He says, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Naite shriti partha jhanan yogi muhyati kashana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavajana. So it's difficult, but we don't need to worry. We just have to don't worry about death. Worry about when we're alive. And let's try and use the time we're alive to serve.
Yeah. And also, Krishna will make you to remember.
Yeah, Krishna takes
ultimately, even if somebody may think, oh, I'll try and remember Krishna at the time of death, but I don't want to remember Krishna throughout my life. I'll try and remember. So this is the plan. But Krishna can trick that person. So ultimately, matta smrutir jnanam apohanam cha.
Yeah. Krishna can.
From me comes forgetfulness, remembrance, and knowledge. So ultimately, Krishna would do that. But as Sundar Chaitanya said, so we better practice while everything is in good shape. Yeah. So, and the rest we leave it for Krishna.
But His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, thank you, sir. Sorry, are you saying something?
No, yeah, go on.
Yeah, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj says, I don't know, but in northern India they say Ram Nam Satya Hai. When someone dies, they say like that the name of Ram is true. But they say it when someone dies, but they don't do it when they're alive. So he says Ram Nam Satya Hai to kyun nahi karte ho jab jinda ho. This is the only Hindi I know. I don't know Hindi, but I just know this phrase because he always says it. If the name of Rama is true, why don't you chant it when you're alive? Why do you say that when people die? Right? So in that way also, we should think like this. Don't try and just, have a nice final rite ceremony to go back to Godhead. Let's use our life itself as our method of going back to Godhead by chanting and by preaching. Thank you. Jai. We'll call it that.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Upasindubhayeva cha, Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Hare
Bol, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.